This is Right for BC, an organization dedicated to supporting and promoting the idea of independent candidates in the 2017 BC election. And we are very, very pleased today to be talking to Nicholas Wong, who is running as the MLA candidate in South Delta to replace Vicki Huntington. How are you today, Nicholas?
I'm not too bad. Thank you
Uh,
very much for having me on here, Glenn.
Thank you very much for showing up and giving us a chance to interview you so that people in BC can find out more about what you're all about and also what the idea is behind running as an independent rather than through one of the established parties.
All right.
So, can you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, Nicholas?
For sure. I was born and raised right here in South Delta. I've been very active in the political community as well as with different environmental groups and hospital advocacy for basically my entire adult life. I graduated from Delta Secondary and from Simon Fraser University. And quite frankly, I think that we need to get young people involved in politics and that a two-party system leads to corruption just as a natural course of order. So that's what I'm here for.
Well, we kind of agree with you. Not only does it potentially lead to corruption, but of course it also leads to what we've seen in the past 30, 40 years, which is nothing but a majority type government, which means that the prevailing party, the ruling party, doesn't have to cross the floor and ask for any permission or ask for any negotiation when it comes to passing legislation. You know,
Absolutely.
they're able to ram things through without anybody else having any kind of a say in the matter. So we think that independent candidates are one of the best ways that we can get people into the legislature that are mostly and firstly accountable to constituents rather than a party machine. So what are your thoughts on that matter?
I think that actually gets back to the heart of what democracy was about. And actually, if you go even farther back, what free speech is about. I think essentially free speech is the mechanism by which humanity has improved itself epigenetically throughout the ages. This is where we take a step forward by allowing conflicting ideas to have their day in the sunlight and clashing against each other in a productive manner. When you have a two-party system where the majority of power goes one way or the other, it essentially cripples that ability because, as you mentioned, the ruling party has no requirement to cross the aisle. And that is very, very dangerous. It means that they aren't accountable to anyone. They aren't even accountable really to their constituents because it's what's best for the party and the party platform. And that's what they try and sell you in the end of the day.
Absolutely right. So have you had a chance to talk to Vicki about her experiences as an independent MLA?
I've been fortunate to have a lot of opportunity to speak to Vicki about her experience. And actually, we've been speaking for a long time in the past as well. I've been fortunate enough to have her support in this election. But prior to that, she was instrumental in a lot of the advocacy work that I was doing for Delta Hospital through the Friends of Delta Hospital campaign, which was quite effective. As well, we used to talk a lot about the environmental issues in the area facing farmland and facing our waterways here in South Delta. I also was lucky enough to visit her on her last day in legislature Tuesday a couple weeks ago, and it was great to see the level of respect that she got from both sides of the aisle. I think more than anything, Vicki has shown that an independent candidate can not only be an effective candidate and representative for the community, but oftentimes she was the most effective MLA sitting in legislature.
I think I have to agree with you. I think Vicki did a lot of things over the course of the last, what, eight years that she was in the legislature, and certainly the last year by exposing a few things that have become a real hot button kind of issue. Do you want to elaborate a bit on that, possibly?
I absolutely would, and I love the title of it, Vicki Leaks. I saw a great video on YouTube satirizing it a little bit, making her seem like a great Russian hacker. And I also love that Christy Clark went up and did the exact same thing that Donald Trump did, and said, "Hey, some information leaked out. It must be malicious external bodies and not an independent MLA just doing something for a very routine check on the donors lists."
Well, it was amazing to see it was sitting in an unsecured, directory that anybody could have probably looked at any point in time, right? But we're kind of glad it was an MLA that found it first.
Oh, and absolutely. And the worst thing about that really was the fallout from that event. the BC Liberal Party sent out an apology letter to the people who were directly affected by the information leak.
Right.
And in doing so, I'd like to say that they acted quite libelously against Vicki by saying that Vicki Huntington illicitly distributed their personal information to a reporter.
Yeah.
And that's just not true at all. I mean, she informed the reporter that you can just type this URL into your search bar and that information will pop up.
Yeah.
That is by no means a dissemination, illicitly especially, of personal information.
No, we quite agree. And of course, that's going to be an ongoing campaign issue, and hopefully one that helps make a difference going forward this year. One of the things that's pretty easy to tell just looking at you is it looks like you might be a millennial. And, we're very, very pleased to see that, your generation is starting to take an active role because, let's face it, we're the ones that are leaving you with a whole whack of debt that you're going to have to look after. So what are your thoughts on that?
The debt in particular is one of those truly abhorrent things in my mind. Not so much the fact that we're carrying a debt. I think there are economic arguments for and against carrying a debt over it. But it's more in the way that the BC Liberals have been wording it. We have a balanced budget. Yes, we balance the operational budget. But in the time that they've been in office, the provincial debt has increased twofold.
Yeah.
You can't really say that we have balanced our budget and made it so that everything's just fine and we're doing great from a business perspective without taking into consideration the accrual of provincial debt to the point where, well, now we're looking at it, we're never going to be able to pay it off in a lot of people's lifetimes. And I'm looking at the prospect of leaving this debt to my kids the way that it was left to us.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, at 26 years old, I'm going to be the one dealing with the fallout and the consequences of the decisions made in legislature today for the rest of my life. And particularly in South Delta, we are at a pivotal point in our history where we can really go one of two ways. And I think that's embodied by the current push right now by mayor and council to redub Delta a city rather than the municipality corporation that it has been since its inception.
Well, one of the things that you may want to check out if you already haven't, and this is also for our listeners and viewers, there's a correspondent in BC by the name of J.J. McCulloch. And J.J. has written an article for the Washington Post that talks about Canadians in particular becoming less sensitized to the impact of debt and how it actually affects us. And, it's a systemic problem, eh? So certainly one we have to look after.
Absolutely. And I think it's part and participle of the much broader movement in Western society where it seems that the truth has been relegated to a footnote in history. When you hear about fake news, alternative facts, and the fact that Christy Clark literally lies through her teeth and makes accusations that are essentially baseless. In particular, I'm talking about, again, the whole WikiLeaks thing.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to see it in any other way.
Well, we have a bit of a hard time with the media party ourselves, of course, and that's one of the reasons that, what we've got here is a blog site. We do podcasting so that we can get information out that doesn't have to be filtered through, groups of people that sit together at coffee shops or lounges and decide what's newsworthy and what's not, right?
Absolutely. And I think this is really where the media is going to find its home in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Places where individual patrons, people who want to hear about it, who care about the product that's being produced, they will pay, even if it's just by donation or however it works, because I think it's the natural progression of the media.
Right.
Because I think it's media confidence is at an all-time low right now. And
exactly. Absolutely right. I'm a little longer in the tooth than you, so my generation has probably been more apt to read and listen and see things on television that are newsworthy. And of course, at that point in time, they're filtered. But your generation apparently is spending at least 2/3 of its time getting its news and evaluating the significance and also the efficacy and the validity of news through social media. So is that going to be a big part of your campaign?
It is, and it already has been. I've been pushing a series of short videos that I'm currently producing right now. I've got the first 2 of them up. They're just going to go over my platform, and this I wanted the opportunity to speak directly to my constituents and lay out what I believe, why I believe it, and then give them the facts that I use to draw my conclusions so that they can draw their own. It's basically a 180 of what our current provincial government has done, where, especially with the George Massey Tunnel Replacement Project, this quote-unquote $3.5 billion bridge, where they first put the sign out saying that it's going to begin construction in 2017, 4 years ago, without having decided what the option is, without showing us the business case, without considering what the soil indicates in terms of the best option. Right. And they've done this time and time again. The Auditor General's report says that. They did it for the Evergreen Line, even though they seem to hail the Evergreen Line as a miracle of provincial progress and provincial projects. They said there was no business case until a year and a half, 2 years after the project had begun. Right. And I don't understand how that can happen, especially for a government that hails itself as the business government. If you were running a business, you would never make a decision before you get the facts. It's called due diligence, and I have seen a startling lack of that in this provincial government for the past 16 years now.
Absolutely. One of the things that happens with government, of course, after they've been in power for too long a period of time, is you get complacency, you also get entitlement. And I guess there's also a thought here that we may have a situation where possibly some good friends of the BC Liberal Party may also be able to benefit in some of these kinds of projects with or without the proper bid process.
Yeah, I had the pleasure to shake David Eby's hand when I went to the legislature. On one particular issue, I hold him up as my hero on. It was a construction project where the provincial government gave the developer preferential financing and a lot of latitude, to say the least. A lot of this is alleged, so I'm not going to speak too closely to it. But if you look at one day in February, I believe it was 2016, the BC Liberal Party received over $400,000 in donations in a single day from the proponents of this project. So to call it a sweetheart deal is not too far off the mark.
Oh, that's just a coincidence, right?
Of course.
So you've got 3 other candidates that are running in your riding at this point in time? So you have a Liberal by the name of Ian Patton, an NDP candidate named Bruce Reid, and a Green Party candidate named Larry Calero. What do you see differentiates the parties? And in your particular case, what is it that's going to allow you to rise above the crowd and resonate with the voters then in South Delta?
What do you mean by differentiate?
Well, we see a lot of political parties that kind of pass the same kind of rhetoric out each and every election in terms of responsible government. We're going to be accountable. We're going to be doing due diligence on things, which, of course, we just talked about they don't necessarily always do. Probably you're going to see certain parties, focusing on certain issues. I don't know if there's anything in South Delta that's really, really resonating at this point in time beyond the tunnel, and beyond the issue of maybe some hijinks in the legislature itself. But if there are some things, please elaborate.
Oh, I think what differentiates my campaign is one. Yeah, everyone can take pot shots on the BC Liberals' current record on, well, I hate to use a different word than corruption right now, because that's
transparency.
Lack of transparency, even though they claim that they're the most transparent government. A lack of forethought in a lot of the developments that come out.
Right.
And a lack of true consultation. I mean, they put out a sign and ask everybody for their input, but they don't give us the information. They don't give us any context. Right. So, I mean, we can talk about that till kingdom come. But essentially what it comes down to is I can say unilaterally that I am not owned by anyone. I am having the hardest time scraping money together to try and make a run out of this thing, because as an independent, I'm not even allowed to use any of the money that Vicki Huntington had raised or any of her contacts, even though she is endorsing me. So I started from ground zero, about 3.5 months from election day, really deciding to become a candidate. And I've had to put together everything from here. So for a fact that my only concern, that my only endorsement and my only owner are the constituents of this riding. Those are the ones that I'm listening to. And the other parties can say so. But if you look at the last 4 years, and Imagine X has done a great job on this. If you haven't had a chance, definitely check out their website because they'll show a comparison of all of the votes since the last election. And through all of the votes, I think it was 117, only two of them had a single candidate go against the party line. In 4 years, it was all NDP, BC Liberal, and Vicki in the middle, getting to decide what is actually best for our community. And I think because Delta is such a unique place, I mean, we have highways, ports, some of the best farmland in the world, amazing ecological wonders, quite frankly, the beautiful beaches, we have the Fraser River, we have the railroads, we have everything in this community. It's a very unique community. I think that it needs someone who's able to evaluate the benefits and the costs of all these projects with no alternative motive other than what is in the best interest for South Delta. And I want to do that. And I think I've got a lot of individual issues as well, and some plans on individual issues that will go a long way towards making sure that South Delta comes first.
That's tremendous. Well, you're speaking to the choir when it comes to making sure that the constituents come first. So just so people can maybe participate in your campaign, this might be a good time for us to ask you to give us the information so people can make donations. And what we'll do is some post-editing, and we'll make sure it shows up on the screen.
Oh, absolutely. Please visit my website. It's www.nicholaswong.ca. Very easy to remember, especially considering my name. And I have a Facebook page as well. It's just Nicholas Wong, Independent for MLA in Delta South. Those are the two main places. Please note that because I am an independent and I don't have any constituency association, all donations and in order to get a tax credit will have to be post-dated till after April 11th when the writ drops. And after that time, I get my candidate number and I'll be able to issue you a tax receipt. But quite frankly, I said I am funded entirely by you, people like you, people in the community, the listeners, and it's going to be a tough race. And I'm going to need all of your support to make this work. So thank you very much for the opportunity for this and for giving me a chance to talk about my campaign and where you can find more information about me. There's lots on the website.
We're very, very pleased to have you with us this afternoon, and hope we're going to get a chance to do this a few more times before the election, even before the writ drops. Now, are there any debates forthcoming that you want to announce? Is there any other information that we should pass on to viewers and listeners at this point?
Yeah, for sure. There are two all-candidates debates coming up, all-candidate meetings, rather, coming up. One is by the Probus Club, while the other one is by the Delta Chamber of Commerce. Both are on April 19th. One is in the morning, one is in the afternoon. I don't know offhand all the specifics of those, but you'll have to talk to my girlfriend, who is the one who manages my calendar. She has been a huge, huge help in this campaign.
Well, that's tremendous. Well, thank you so much, Nicholas, for joining us today. And like I say, we look forward to talking to you again, and we're going to certainly promote you and endorse you as an independent candidate for South Delta. And we wish you nothing but the best of success.
Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure.
Okay, take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.